I've been through. In 1991, they stopped me in Wheeling, West Virginia, and got a 911 dispatcher to lie to say that I was talking to him and told them that I was on my way to Washington, D.C. to take out George Walker Bush's life.
Oh, mercy.
And here I am, way up in Wheeling, West Virginia, up in Pennsylvania, pretty close to Ohio, on the other side of Ohio. I was locked up for 10 days and didn't even know what the charges was. Finally, I'm standing in front of this judge and this 911 dispatcher, and they've appointed me an attorney over here, a female attorney. My wife and my brother drove up there for character witnesses to vouch in my behalf. And that dispatcher gets right on stand after him raising his hand and swearing to God to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help me God, and got up there and sworn that I had said that. Well, they listened to the tape because everything on 911 gets recorded, right? Everything. He played back the tape verbatim of everything that I had said talking to the 911 dispatcher office. There was nothing even coming close to me threatening anybody's life, especially the President of the United States' life. My attorney listened to it. She goes, well, Your Honor, I don't know about you, but I didn't hear nothing at all towards Mr. Jackson making any type of alleged threat. Do you receive that information the same way I do? He said, yes, ma'am, I do. And he looked over at the dispatcher. He said, do you have an explanation of how come the threat that Mr. Jackson supposedly threatened the president isn't on this tape? You know what he said? Oh, there must have been equipment failure. Did you know that they took that man's word of him still stating the fact that I was a threat to the President of the United States, a threat to Homeland Security? They had me down as me being an assassin. They thought that I was on my way to Washington, D.C. to actually take out a president. Assassin is a paid killer, somebody that's getting paid to kill somebody. Did you know that they took about 6 months out of my life? They sent me, I had to go through one evaluation for this, and another evaluation for this, and another evaluation for this, and neither evaluation could be done in consecutive of each other. They had to be done separate. And when it was all said and done, well, look here, ain't that some nice looking stuff?
Oh, yeah.
What, Model Ts?
Yeah, they're going to have a car show somewhere.
Model Ts, huh?
Yeah.
Anyways, he said they couldn't be done in consecutive of each other to take these tests. So they send me to Butner, North Carolina, in a federal prison system that's associated with mental health. First thing they do is put me in a suicide watch room. Suicide watch room has all this glass around it. You got police station over here, police is over here, police is over here. They're doing their work, but at the same time, they're still watching you because you have absolutely no privacy. Even whenever you go to the bathroom, there's absolutely no privacy. You talk about humiliating. I've been through some very, very humiliating things pertaining to the United States government. Anyways, after 3 days, once they figure out you ain't suicidal, then they put you off in this other room, this other place. Keep you in there for about a week. That way, whenever they take you out to open population and actually assign you a room, you feel like you're like a bird getting out of a cage. I'd stay up there for 6 months almost. They took 6 months out of my life, and every morning whenever I'd wake up, they'd call various people in there to the office. I'd sit down in a table big enough to put about 20 people around. They was all wearing white suits. What I'm telling you is the truth now. I can prove it. Them doctors would scrutinize you. They'd ask you the same question 17 different ways. twisted around, but it was basically the same question again and again and again. Do you have any harmful intentions towards wanting to kill the United States president? Do you want to harm yourself? Do you want to hurt somebody? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? A day after day after day after day. And what they was trying to do was break me down so that I would admit to the charge. I never did admit to the charge. You know why I didn't admit to the charge? Because I didn't say what they was telling me that I'd said. I know what I'd said to that 911 dispatcher, and it didn't have nothing to do with me going to try to harm a president of the United States. I got more sense than to threaten a judge or threaten a congressman or threaten a president. You threaten somebody like that, son, you're gonna be accountable for your threat, and they're gonna figure out real quick whether or not it was intentional, or you meant what you said, or whether or not you was just blabbing off. They're gonna follow into it, especially with all this terrorism around here. All these people done gone crazy with guns and stuff. But the government, they have almost totally ruined my life because of a spiritual encounter that I had with the Lord in 1983, whenever an automobile, a 4,000-pound automobile, rolled completely over on top of me that should have cut me completely in half. But instead, I felt two hands miraculously come out of heaven that grabbed both of my wrists. And as the Spirit of God entered into my body, I looked up at a 4,000-pound automobile that come crushing down up on top of my torso, that I physically seen metal bending around my body that is scientifically, medically impossible. They drug me up underneath the car, called an ambulance, with me being way out in the country. It took about a half hour for them to get there. By the time they got there, I was already unconscious. Well, they looked at me, felt of me, said, well, he don't have no lacerations, and he don't appear to have no broken bones. Let's go ahead and take him on into the emergency room just to be sure. On the way to the emergency room, my blood pressure went from a normal blood pressure state to 0. Bottomed out. All my veins had collapsed to the point that once they got me in the emergency room, they couldn't find none of my veins in my arms. So they had to cut down by my ankle and find that main vein going up through your leg and start pumping blood back up into it. Medically, I was dead. I was dead, but it was only because of the hand of God that was upon me that was keeping me alive. The doctor, he was from India. He wound up checking me out and looking at me. He said, well, you got problems in here somewhere. He said, you're bleeding eternally. He said, we can't see it out here, but he said, obviously you got a problem where that car rolled over on top of you. He said, we're going to have to operate on you. I said, all right. So I woke up about 5 hours later with a big tube down my throat after they had cut me from stem to stern, opened me up, took out all my intestines.
Couldn't find nothing.
No, my spleen, my main spleen was busted.
Oh, okay.
That's where I was bleeding out internally. And I don't know if they repaired my spleen or they removed my spleen. But anyways, I didn't have nowhere to go, so I went back home with my mom and dad at the time. I was 24 years old at the time, trying to recuperate from that accident. And about 2 weeks into it, my doctor committed suicide. And about 2 weeks after that, my father got me down on the floor and was trying to finish me off, trying to kill me. This was in 1983. So I walk the next day. I figure out, my father, he ain't to be trusted because he's already attacked me. And who in the world would attack anybody that had 64 staples clamping their skin together towards making sure that their belly growed back? Who in the world would do that unless he wanted to kill me? So I walked all the way to a little town called Kenton, Tennessee, white squirrel capital of the world. You said you married a girl from down there.
Yeah.
And I go to the police station. I tell them what happened. And I also told them about the Antichrist and the mark of the beast, the two witnesses, Armageddon, the apocalypse, pertaining to the teachings coming from the Bible that Jesus taught, that whenever you shall see the abomination of desolation, know that the end is at hand. Know that the end is nigh.
Don't work too hard.
See, David.
Be careful, Jake.
Well, they contacted my parents and have them come down there to the city hall.
See, Thomas.
And next thing you know, we got us a town hall meeting that's surrounding my life. They questioned me. How come your father attacked you? I said,
Like you had started.
I said, well, it had been leading up to it. I said, we was in the middle of an argument again and again and again, day after day after day, to the point that it literally almost drove my mother off into a nervous breakdown. And I go, the thing that toppled it was that I called out to California, because at that time they had a show going on called Ripley's Believe It or Not.
I remember that show.
And they had advertised at the end of every show that if you had a remarkable story where your life had been spared and you felt like that it was something done superficial or supernaturally, to contact them, and they may very well put you on the airwaves towards displaying your story. So I contacted them. I didn't talk to the right person. They said, well, we'll contact you back. So here we are, is sitting, eating at a table, supper time. Telephone rings. Of course, back then, them big old green phones had a long line that kept tangled up all the time. Whenever they said you was on the phone, you was literally on the phone back then. They didn't have all these cell phones like they do today. Well, Dad was closest to the phone. He answered it. As soon as he found out who they was, Ripley's Believe It or Not, he literally almost jerked the phone completely off of the wall. Now, my father was in World War II. He was a World War II drill sergeant. He had post-traumatic stress syndrome that at that time they didn't have it diagnosed right, and they would call it shell shock. He was very, very brutal. Whenever he was good, but whenever he was bad, he was bad. And he didn't know how to discipline none of his children other than to beat us.
What Mama done
I mean, literally fly into us and almost kill us.
me. My mama done that.
But the sad thing about it was, or the craziest thing about it was, 15 minutes after he just got through trying to kill you, then he'd say, oh, okay, well, come with me. Let's go down here to the grocery store and I'll buy you a soda pop and a Snickers bar. And he would never bring it up again.
I didn't want to hear it.
Didn't want to hear it. Never bring it up again. But he would change from Dr. Jekyll to Mr. Hyde just like that.
He had split personality.
He had a split personality.
Yeah.
Well, I explained to the mayor and the cops there that day, I said, this had been brewing for about a month in the house. And I said, it wasn't the fact that my father was upset that I had made a long-distance telephone call out to California. It was the fact that he didn't want God to get the glory for a miracle that had taken place in his son's life, and that's the reason why he almost jerked the phone plumb off the wall. Whenever he done that, I stood to my feet and I said, this has gotten out of hand to the point that I'm either going to take a gun and blow my brains out, or I'm going to take a gun and blow your brains out. It was an equal threat, but at the same time, I didn't have a knife, I didn't have a gun. It was more or less a void threat. They consider that a void threat. But I was trying to simmer him down so that he would quit ratting and raving. But instead of me simmering him down, he even got worse. He jumped from the kitchen all the way. It was almost like he was flying like a witch in the air. He literally jumped for about 25 feet, which is humanly impossible.
Yeah.
And jumped on top of me. And once I realized what he was fixing to do was kill me, I immediately fell to the ground, took my elbows and covered up my face and took my belly as far down to the ground as I could to where he couldn't get to my belly. Because like I said, I had 1.5 inch staples that was pulling my skin back together, and my skin hadn't had time to heal because the staples was still up and down my belly.
Right.
He started beating on the back of my head, on the back of my neck, and on the back of my back as hard as he could. And the only thing that saved me, of course, was God. But his brother, J.W., was in the living room, and he heard all that ruckus going on, and he come out there real quick in the kitchen and said, Bobby, 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 you're going to kill him, you're going to kill him. And drug him off of me.
And remember, Bobby, you'd been dead.
If it weren't for my dad's brother, J.W., I'd be dead.
That's right.
So the following next morning, I go to Kenton. I'm telling them my story. I'm asking for some sort of help. But the type of help that they gave me wasn't what they should have done. What they should have done was charge my father with a criminal charge towards attempted murder.
That's true.
Because at that time, I was a patient of his.
That's right.
And like I said, I didn't have a knife. I didn't have a gun. I didn't have nothing that physically that would make him think that his life was in peril. He was the one that kept agging it on about this and this and this, and it had been going on for about a month. It was the old devil in him is what it was.
That's what it was, that old Satan. So it's right.
And
anything towed away here?
I'll get it. And when it was all said and done with, they said, well, Dennis, we think you're the one with the problem because you're talking about the Antichrist, the mark of the beast. You're talking about the opening of the seals. You're
They didn't
talking
want to hear
about
the Lord.
They didn't want to hear about the Lord.
That's all it was.
That's right. They didn't want to hear about the
turned a
Lord.
deaf ear to it.
That's right. And what they basically done said, well, we're requesting for you to go to a mental institution. This was in 1983. I was 24 years old. I had never in my entire life been associated with any type of mental institution.
And no crime.
Or no crimes.
Yeah, they shouldn't have done that.
But the person that should have went to the mental institution was my daddy.
That's true.
He was the one that was abusive all throughout our lives. I had two older brothers and one younger brother.
Yep.
And it got to the point that finally my mother divorced him after the boys got old, because back then they didn't have near the amenities like they have today towards taking care of a family. And back then, if a woman left her husband, she was looked down upon.
It's like my mother.
She was looked down upon. It wasn't a pleasant thing for the community.
My mother would beat us.
She would.
Yeah. And my daddy never hit me in my life. But my mama, when she got started whooping, it was worse and worse and worse and worse. She couldn't
Just
quit.
fly off the handle.
Couldn't quit.
Yeah.
So when I got 13, she went out there and got them switches, she would braid them. We'd have to pull our shirts off, even in the cotton patch.
Really?
And when she got done whooping us, blood will, if we hadn't lucky enough to have any underwear, or shorts, or what would be soaked.
With blood.
Yeah, and so I told my mother one day, she dragged back her hand, and she was strong. She was stout. Dragged back her hand, and with that switch, I just caught her hand. That's Mama, I love you. This is the last whooping you'll ever give me.
Right.
She went and got some more switches. I took them out of her hand, broke them. I didn't hurt her. Took them out of her hand, broke them. She said, you know where that closet is in there? I said, yeah. She said, go get it and pack what few duds you got and get out of my house. I was 13 years old. I didn't even know where to go.
Lord.
I moved in with some friend of mine over that I worked with, Mom and Daddy, Homer Wilbur. Moved in with them. But I love my mother.
What you treat? Yeah. I love my dad, and I was caught in between knowing what was right and knowing what was wrong,
That's right.
but also knowing that I loved him. But at the same time, just because I love you doesn't mean that I'm gonna be your whipping post.
No, I'm not either. Oh.
And that's exactly what my dad needed, or thought that he needed, was a whipping post. And he took all his ambition and his aggression out on his family.
What that done when he went to service, he had seen himself over something, it mended his service.
Well, he was probably raised up under that type of brutality to begin with,
Probably was.
because he was born in 1926.
Oh, okay, well there you go.
You know,
He had an
that was
abusive-
right before the 1929 Depression.
I bet you money he had abusive mother and daddy one.
Yes,
I guarantee.
yes, sir. He had abusive mother and daddy, and that's what he considered to be normal.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, whenever he went to the war, and his best buddy got blowed up in front of him,
Yeah, that disturbed him again.
that disturbed him again. And of course, whenever he moved back from Chicago down to Tennessee, I was about 6 years old, because I was born in '61. We moved down here to Tennessee in '66. Then in 69, his father died. Well, after his father died, he thought that he had full reign then, that he could do whatever he wanted to do to his family, and wasn't nobody going to say nothing or do nothing towards telling him how he was going to raise his family. And that's whenever he got mean. That's whenever he let the old devil come into his heart.
I volunteered for the Army right through the courthouse. I was 18 years old. On my 18th birthday. Vietnam was getting close to the end of it. And they classified me 1A, but turned me down. You know why? I asked them 2 questions. Mr. Killingsworth, why do you want to join the Army? Well, I thought it was reasonable. I said, well, are they over there killing American people? Killing our people? And the Army recruiter looked at me and he said, yeah, that's what they're doing. I said, well, I want to get over there and kill as many of them as I can. Would you consider that being a nut or wanting to help our people out?
Right.
They turned me down kind of. But I was classified 1A.
How was you supposed to answer the question? Oh, I want to go over and try to make amends with all of them and let them become friends with me.
Yeah. Look at that little bird. Look at that. Right here on the ground.
Yeah.
Look at that.
It's probably hungry. Want something to eat.
Yeah.
But if you don't watch, especially if you got a calling in your life,
Yeah.
if God's ever done anything for you,
You need to answer.
if God's ever done anything for you, I guarantee you those around you will despise it.
Oh, yeah. They'll get jealous.
They'll get jealous and they'll despise it. And the goodwill has followed your life simply because the hand of God has been upon you.
I know that. Absolutely. I've totaled 15 cars. I used to drink when I was young.
So you should be dead. Probably,
I've
truth be
totaled
known.
15 cars. I used to drink a lot.
Did you?
Yep.
Did you ever feel like you had a calling to do something for God?
Well,
Or was you running from that calling until later on throughout your
what it
life?
was, I never got under conviction until I hit about 40 years old.
Really?
35 or 40, I got under conviction, so I went to church. And Brother Lloyd Davis was preaching that night.
Okay.
Old Adamville, Church
Okay.
of God Prophecy. When they had that altar call, it just like something swelled up,
Right?
knotted up in there.
Right.
That was that conviction. I
Right.
didn't know what it was.
Right.
I went to the altar, and I went down there as a drunk. But I came up as a child of God.
Good for you.
I've never drank no more.
Good for
That was
you.
it. That was it.
Good for
And
you.
I'm a different person.
Good for
It
you.
changed my whole life.
Good for
Changed
you.
everything about me. But I'm gonna tell you, when God gets a hold of you,
Uh-huh.
you will know it.
Oh, you better believe
You will
it.
know it.
You better believe
I
it.
can be praying at my bed. I'm not bragging. I can be praying at my bed or in the couch or going down the road, and the power of God will come on me so strong, it'll shiver me around like a vibrator you used to put on your neck and do
Yeah.
the massage.
Yeah.
I can't even be still. But He comes on me so hard.
Right.
He's letting me know He loves me and He's there.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna head to church. Hey, it was good meeting you, man.
Good meeting you too. Take care of yourself.
And they asked me 3 or 4 times, are you gonna get that COVID shot? My little girl's in medicine. It's just between me and you.
Right.
She works at these nursing homes.
Right.
She was a certified CNA at 16 years old. I had to
Okay.
sign for her to go to work.
All right.
And in school too.
All right.
When them shots first come out, right down here real local, I won't mention no name. There was 2 or 3 of them shots killed them old people. 4 days later, they was dead. I see.
Well, I done took my shots. You're telling me that you ain't gonna take a shot.
I'm not gonna take it.
I got you. And that's up to you. That's your choice. It's kind of like going to church and believing in God or not believing in God. That's your choice.
That's the way I see it. If God wants me, whether I take them shots or not, I'm gonna go.
Probably.
I see it.
You're kind of like the old hard shell Baptist, ain't you? What is to be will be, and if it ain't meant to be, it won't be.
I'm Church of God.
You're Church of God.
Yeah, if God wants me, He's gonna take me no matter where I'm at.
It don't matter if you take 1,000 shots.
That's right.
If He wants you, He's gonna get you.
Good job. I got that for sale. Anybody want a good little ride? Got a wheel man over there making ratchets. I'm gonna fix it.
Yeah. Good talking to you.
Good job to you, sir.
Jackie, right?
How do you say your name was?
Jackson.
Jack?
Remember me today in your prayers, sir.
I will.
Hey, I was recording that a while ago. Is that okay? Okay. I'm up here in Savannah, Tennessee, Memorial Weekend. Bumped into a complete total stranger that I've never met. Somebody that was familiar with the country singer or country artist, Mr. Whirly. Said that he owns this Mustang that belonged to Buford Pulser's daughter that he's trying to fix up and sell. This guy's been here almost all his life. Supposedly married a girl from up around Union City somewhere and had a big family. He's about 70 years old. Seems to be a pretty good old Joe, especially somebody that he had never talked to or bumped into before. Savannah, Tennessee is where I am.